One, sad day. Sad day. Joy Reid fired from MSNBC. 2, a former insider at USAID who understands the corruption and has written a book entitled Masters of Corruption, How the Federal Bureaucracy Sabotaged the Trump Administration, joins us today here on The Will Cain Show. 3, it's official. We have a new member of the family. It is the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel and the Fox News Facebook page. Terrestrial radio, some 3 dozen markets across the great United States of America. Always on demand by subscribing at Apple or on Spotify. You can join us every Monday through Thursday by simply subscribing on YouTube, setting a reminder. We're doing the same on Facebook. And that way you're always here for every live episode of the Will Cain Show and become a member of the Willisha. What's up, boys? How's it going? How was the weekend in New York? Young
What's
James,
up, Will
you
Cain?
went out with some of the guys. You went out with some of the guys in the Fox family. I'm getting texts. I'm getting text from James on a Saturday night.
He didn't plug his headphones in, so you got to give him a second.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad he's doing it all on air. I was just going to keep rocking, but we get to hear. I can't hear anything, and the panic.
Good start.
Well, I just wanted to make sure our audience members could hear something too, but it was a me issue.
Plug in your headphones. Pretty easy. You went out with some people from Fox on Saturday night. You guys are texting me on Saturday night.
Yeah, I guess so. It's a birthday party. A lot of Fox producers there, and people work hard during the week, but they're able to kick back and relax on the weekend and socialize.
Well, thank you for that recap. What?
I'm riveted.
That was a riveting story about Saturday night. That was incredible.
I'm still feeling it. I got nothing for you.
Like every time you were speaking right there, every word that came out of your mouth, were you measuring it? Were you thinking, I don't know what to say? Like, you sounded like an HR press release.
Yeah, I got nothing for you.
Nothing you can say, at least.
Yeah. I had an uneventful weekend, except I feel like I'm getting old. So one of my sons said to me, hey, my younger son, I want to go to the soccer field. I want to practice shooting. I'm like, okay. I've been doing this with them throughout my life. It's actually like, when I look back on fatherhood, it'll be one of the, endearing memories of my life is like on Saturdays and Sundays in New York. And then, of course, the last couple of years, I haven't been able to as much because I've been away on the weekends. But I would take them to a skateboard park, or I would take them to a soccer field, whatever. So, but time has passed. He's 13. He's 6 foot tall. So he's like, I want to shoot. And I'm going to play goalie. And he's like, not a little kid anymore. And he shoots. And I blocked like 1 or 2 in the beginning. I'm like, that hurts. I don't really want to be doing this. Yeah. Like for real, like, you see a ball shot and it's just like, it's not a good shot because it's like directly at me. So I can just, but then when it hits, you're like, that's not comfortable. I don't really want to be doing this. So then he lines up one. And I don't know why it caught me off guard. I don't know if he had a little tail on it or if it was picking up speed. I will say he shoots hard. It surprised me. And I don't know why it surprised me. It shouldn't. And so at the last minute, I raise my hands like this, and I make a fist with one hand.
Oh, no.
And I just kind of get the other one up like this.
No.
But I didn't make a complete clenched fist. My fist didn't clench all the way. So it just hammers my front index finger on my left hand. And I guess jams my wrist, which I didn't know at the time. The injury's mounted. And then it hit this right wrist, and it hurt, and then it hit me in the face. And just boom.
So you're playing hurt today?
There's no video of that?
So listen. So I'm hands on knees in this soccer field. There's no pretending. It hurt. And so, You know, he comes up, but he's doing that laugh thing where he's laughing, but he's like, "Are you okay?" You know, like, which always makes you mad. You know, and I'm like, "There's, you know, the goal's 100%, and I take up 6% of it. How do you hit me?" You know, like shoot it anywhere but where I am. But anyway, long and short of it is, the pain mounted last night. I thought maybe I'd broken my wrist. Like by the time I laid in bed, I couldn't get my arm comfortable, no matter how I laid. And I was like, did I break my wrist? I've broken my wrist before.
You would know.
And it started to feel very familiar. I could move it, but it was getting stiffer and stiffer and more painful and throbbing. And I'm like, it shouldn't keep getting more painful. Like, that's the sign of a broken something, right? It's like either it hurts at the beginning and gets better, but to get more painful as you go, I'm like, what is that? So anyway, I'm playing hurt today. Yeah, I woke up today. A little better, though. A little better.
Ice it.
Can't play
Those
soccer
things
with a
linger.
13-year-old. It was an excuse not to get in the gym this morning.
There you go.
All right, enough small talk coming off the weekend because there's a lot of big news, and there's a real sad situation that we all have to deal with this morning, and it is that Joy Reid has been fired from MSNBC. Story number one. The host of the 7 p.m. Eastern Time hour on MSNBC, renowned as the Race Lady, probably the most insane person maybe to ever be on television. I don't, just off the top of our heads, really quickly. No, I would not put Don Lemon above her. No, not Brian Stelter. I think Keith Olbermann could be in the running, but even with Keith Olbermann, I don't think he did as much crazy on TV, said as much ridiculous things as Joy Reid. Joy Reid said things like male white tears she loves. Watch and listen to this.
In America, there's a thing about both white vigilantism and white tears, particularly male white tears. Really white tears in general, because that's what Karens are, right? They Karen out, and then as soon as they get caught, it's like, Green Waterworks. White men can get away with that too. And it has the same effect. Even as the right tries to politicize the idea that masculinity is being robbed from American men by multiculturalism and wokeism.
That's, of course, that was on TikTok. That wasn't on TV. 2 days. Give me one where she's from television saying this crazy stuff. Either that Trump is a fascist or Kamala ran a flawless campaign.
We've laid out the stakes in this crucial election, where one side stands for freedom while the other meets the textbook definition of fascism, namely a far-right dictatorial regime like Hitler's Germany or Franco's Spain or Mussolini's Italy, but also white-ruled South Africa before Mandela and the black majority took control, or Vladimir Putin's Russia, Viktor Orban's Hungary, or Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela today.
That was pretty well done television. They had all those dudes' pictures up on a gigantic wall and scrolled across them. She's indicative of, there was a style of commentary where you had to race even further to the insanity. You had to become more hyperbolic. You had to embrace, causing fear. Honestly, think about the people that listen to MSNBC. And when I lived in New York, I knew a lot. I knew some people who said this. I really like Joy Reid. I'm like, are you kidding me? Think about the people that consumed that on a nightly basis. You were pumping pure insanity into the minds of what we know was a pretty small minority, actually. Ratings were terrible for Joy Reid. Ratings are terrible for MSNBC. There's not a single show on MSNBC, including $25 to $30 million paid Rachel Maddow in primetime, that outrates the Will Cain show. Not a single one. And they're all fractions. We're not even talking about it's a close race. They're not even fractions. So the audience is small. And by the way, it's old. People don't talk about that. They always say that when it comes to Fox. Oh, the demographic from Fox is old. The demographic for MSNBC is really old. I think we think of progressivism and this kind of wokeism as a young thing, But the people that watch that stuff on a night in, night out basis, they're old. But she was a source of constant fodder for people like me that have podcasts, that need something fun to laugh at, like the idea that Kamala Harris ran a flawless campaign.
I mean, this really was an historic, flawlessly run campaign. She had Queen Latifah never endorses anyone. She came out and endorsed. You know, I mean, she had every prominent celebrity voice. She had the Taylor Swift, she had the Swifties, she had the Beehive. Like, you could not have run a better campaign in that short period of time. And I think that's still true.
I mean, I wonder if she believes that, because there is part of that that's an old mentality, like a 20-year-old mentality. Oh, you've got all the right celebrity endorsements, so it's a flawless campaign. When we're just well beyond that. No one cares about celebrity endorsements. They might even be a net drag on your favorability. Joy Reid is no more, and it's a sad, sad day for those of us who need something to laugh at. Now, the question is, what does that mean for MSNBC? If you'll remember, and these names may not be that familiar to you, but they should be. What was it, 2 years ago now? The president of CNN's name was Chris Licht. He was there for a short period of time. And he pivoted CNN away from their insanity. So this is when Brian Stelter was fired, when Don Lemon was fired, and ultimately Chris Cuomo was fired. And they started to pivot. But he basically had to deal with an internal mutiny inside of CNN that was completely anti-Trump, that ultimately cost him his job. And by the way, now Brian Stelter is back on CNN. Rebecca Cutler is the new head of MSNBC. And it doesn't just include Joy Reid. Do you guys in New York know, I think Jen Psaki is going to come out of this with a more prominent position, a primetime show.
I think it seems that way.
Yeah.
The people that are replacing Joy Reid, it's a panel show featuring Michael Steele, Simone Sanders, and who's the third person? Does anybody have that in front of them?
Alex
But the
Wagner.
point is,
Oh, no,
she's going to be on that panel.
No.
No, she lost her show too.
Yep,
That's
yep.
another part of the shakeup.
Yep. We'll find
She
out.
lost her show. So the question is what does this mean for MSNBC? It isn't them pivoting away from far left insanity. While Michael Steele is no Joy Reid, he'll do a pedestrian job of upholding the demand for insanity among that audience. It's just not going to live up to Joy Reid standards. What it is, I think, is if you look across both those networks, is a pivoting away from people that are all risk, no reward. People that say things that get you sued for defamation, people that say things that honestly corrupt the public environment, and then people who, despite all of that, don't get ratings. What's the point in continuing to put Joy Reid on? Like, what's the upside? There is no upside. She was making $3 million a year. Apparently, that's what press reports are. She had to take a pay cut at some point. And, you know, it's good for Democrats that Joy Reid is no longer a primetime host on MSNBC. What's up, two-a-days?
So it says MSNBC plans to replace Reid in the 7 p.m. hour with a trio of hosts: former Kamala Harris advisor Simone Sanders Townsend, Michael Steele, and Alicia Menendez.
Oh, okay. Alicia Menendez is the
Daughter
third person.
of former New Jersey Senator
Gold Bar
Bob Menendez.
Yeah, Gold Bar Bob. Exactly. It's good for Democrats. On one hand, you see Jasmine Crockett rising up to be sort of the most prominent voice of Democrats right now, which is really good for Republicans. On the other hand, distancing from Joy Reid is really good for Democrats. James Carville, by the way, who's just been on a tear on various things, including going after Stephen A. Smith for, I guess, opining on politics. James Carville said, here's his strategy for what Democrats should be doing right now in this environment of so much action from Donald Trump.
The Democrats need to play possum. This whole thing is collapsing. It doesn't need Elizabeth Warren and somebody screaming to pacify some progressive advocacy groups in Washington. which, by the way, I wish these people were just useless. They're actually worse than useless, that they're detrimental. And they never, ever learn to shut up. And so, Dan, this is what I believe. I believe that this administration, in less than 30 days, in the midst of a massive collapse.
Okay, I think this is a fascinating piece of analysis. Just for a minute, okay? Set aside Donald Trump and set aside what he's actually doing. The history of most administrations is that they overread their mandate and they overreach their agenda. And when they do so, there is a pendulum swing back the other way for the other party. When the American public says, whoa, we didn't sign up for all of this. Look at all this wokeism, how far it went. We're seeing a hard pendulum swing the other way. So as a matter of historical trend, I think Carville is right in that if that's the way it usually goes, and by the way, then you would acknowledge that the Trump administration is incredibly aggressive in going after their goals, using executive orders and using DOGE and Elon Musk. If that's historically the way it goes, then what you don't want is you don't want everyone to continue to hear from Elizabeth Warren and AOC and Joy Reid. You don't want that and Jasmine Crockett to be the voice of Democrats. You want to play possum, sit quiet, and hope that historical trends hold true. Now, I don't think they will. That's my personal opinion. There's new polling out today from Harvard-Harris, which suggests that everything that President Trump is going after is incredibly popular. DOGE cuts, like almost a 60% approval rating. Immigration enforcement, almost a 60% approval rating. I don't have them all in front of me. There's like every big trans men and women sports, huge approval rating. And then some of them get well north of 60%. The things that he's focused on, he's going after, are popular. It's not overreach. So we'll have to see, though, if you sit back and play possum, if there will eventually be overreach. I don't think there's going to be public backlash on pursuing peace, even under the terms they're discussing between Ukraine and Russia is going to have a backlash. One could argue the one issue that might threaten that is the Gaza issue, like turning it into Gazaria, Riviera Gaza. But, I mean, let it play out. And if I'm a Democrat, don't let Joy Reid take to social media and become the voice you talk about every day. Because, by the way, she'll have just as big a platform but less money on social media than she had on MSNBC. Sad day for the rest of us. We can no longer poke fun at Joy Reid. An insider on the corruption of USAID. Next on the Will Cain Show. But first, we've partnered with Gundry MD to share this information with you. Would you believe me if I told you inside your pantry right now is one of the healthiest foods on the planet? Yep, it's true. And it's not some weird, trendy, quote-unquote, superfood. Spoiler alert, it's olive oil. You're probably used to cooking with it, but there are countless ways to use olive oil to help you look and feel younger. For example, olive oil is a natural way to help you achieve a more youthful appearance. Besides helping you look younger on the outside, it's a fantastic tool for the inside as well. According to Dr. Stephen Gundry, a famous cardiothoracic surgeon, nutrition expert, and health advocate, you should get as much high-quality olive oil in your daily routine as possible, whether it's taking a daily shot of it or keeping a bottle in your bathroom medicine cabinet. But what kind of olive oil is best for your health? Well, any olive oil can give you some benefits, but if you're looking to get the best results, it matters a lot which one you pick. The olive oil industry is huge, and you can tell by the number of olive oil brands you see at the grocery store, and you can bet they're not all made with the same consumer in mind. And many brands may even cut corners one way or another to increase profits. When Dr. Gundry came to this realization, he was appalled, but some olive oils are so powerful, they only take a few tablespoons a week to see these incredible health benefits. So how can you tell between an olive oil that can be a health booster and which one isn't up to par? In an effort to answer that question, Dr. Gundry decided to take a stand and release his personal research and findings. This video has gone viral since its release, and it's important for you to see it so you can start benefiting immediately. You can watch the video right now by going to getolive1.com/will or by clicking on the description box below. That's getolive1.com/WILL, or just click on the link in the description box below. People who have taken this advice have shared their results with him, saying the olive oil they bought after learning his simple rule has helped change their lives. Make sure you go to getolive1.com/will or click on the link in the description box below this video. an insider on the corruption of USAID, next on The Will Cain Show. Viewer points out there was also a shakeup at The View. So we're talking about a shakeup on all kinds of media enterprises to say, hey, I don't think it's so much be less anti-Trump. It's like, hey, be more sane. But we're going to see a fallout, a shakeup at The View. It's the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel, and the Fox News Facebook page. Always on demand by subscribing at Apple or on Spotify. My next guest is the author of Masters of Corruption, How the Federal Bureaucracy Sabotaged the Trump Presidency. And he is Dr. Mark Moyar, who worked at USAID during the first Trump administration. That's before it all went south. Dr. Moyar, great to see you here on the Will Cain Show.
Hey, great to be with you, Will.
Let's talk about, first of all, when all of this stuff started coming out and DOGE looked into USAID and we as a country started to hear the types of things they were spending money on, how unsurprised were you to hear about USAID?
I was not surprised at all. The sorts of excesses we first heard about, things like these transgender operas and DEI and Serbia and all these other crazy things. We had seen this very similar things during the Obama years. And in 2017, in fact, I'd written an article about some of the same kind of crazy things going on. Now, during the Trump era, what happened was that they slapped new labels on a lot of this stuff to try to hide it. But and some of it did go away. But once Samantha Power came in 2021, it was full on again going with all these DEI programs.
All right, so this is the crazy stuff, which we've talked about. Like you said, operas in Colombia, DEI plays in Ireland. And that is whatever, even if they rebranded it, you know, I guess that would be fraudulent. But it's a waste of the taxpayer's dollar. And I think the best word to use there is waste. But I want to dig in with you to the idea of corruption. And I want you to talk to me about other stuff USAID was doing, like other places they were active, both internally and externally of the United States.
Yeah, so a lot of the corruption is not as sensational as what we've been hearing about in news stories. A lot of it involves contracting fraud. And this is, people who've paid attention to bureaucracies, this is nothing new. You know, people are not going in there and just siphoning money out of the bank accounts. I mean, that would be pretty hard to do, but it's not really necessary. It's much easier to cover your tracks if you engage in contracting fraud. And so what you often see is people within the agency colluding with people outside the agency to steer money to particular contractors. And USAID has a $42 billion budget. Almost all of that goes to what they call implementing partners. So, you know, agency employees are not out there digging wells and helping, you know, the poor themselves. They're hiring other people. And so there's huge amounts of contracting dollars that could get astray. And another part of this corruption is that you have huge overhead costs. And Senator Joni Ernst, during the Biden administration, asked about these and was told, oh, we don't have that information. They basically lied about it. And then eventually they came out, they had some, but and that's another problem too. Congress is supposed to be overseeing this and they're not. So the corruption takes many forms, and it's insidious in many ways, and unfortunately not surprising when a lot of this news came out.
Okay, let's stick with the contract stuff for just a moment. What about kickbacks? That's a word we always hear kicked around when it comes to government fraud, that somehow the players inside, either politicians or bureaucrats, are getting kickbacks from these contracting companies, like you said, and that's how they get selected for work with the government. Yes,
well, there are, in terms of kickbacks, I'm not sure there's a lot in terms of direct cash payments, because that's hard. That's fairly easy to catch. So they have more ingenious schemes for doing this. One of the most common things that I came across was that you'd have somebody working in the government and they're helping decide who gets the contract. Then they award this huge contract to contractor X. And then a year later, they get, you know, a job paying them $300,000 a year at that company. And so you can't clearly identify a specific amount of funding, but that kind of thing happens a lot. That's probably the most common. I mean, another thing we saw, which is how I actually got in trouble for reporting this, is we had an employee in our agency who was the chairman of the board of a company that was getting money from the federal government. A huge violation of federal conflict of interest laws, but a lot of that stuff is allowed to happen because people are afraid to speak up.
Yeah, I want to dig on the job thing for just a minute. That seems to be what we always hear about. You know, you spend years inside the government. Next thing you know, you're going to work for someone who was lobbying the government and maybe even lobbying you. Or you just go work for a lobbyist and you're yet another middleman right there in between. Or, by the way, one of your family members is the beneficiary of one of these jobs. Is there nothing that can prevent this? Or is there no law in the books? Meaning, you know, I understand how hard it would be to regulate and create laws around where someone is allowed to go work. But something to the extent that if it's a client that directly worked with you or, you know, in some way was connected to your office, you're precluded from going into that job after service.
Yeah, I mean, there are rules governing this, and no laws will be 100% perfect. And as you mentioned, this question of having family members benefit. I mean, we saw that in the Hunter Biden scandal, how the Biden family is able to shift money to different relatives, and it's even with someone that high profile, it can be hard to trace. And I think there is a need for more stringent laws, and we've heard the Trump administration talking more about restricting the so-called revolving door, where you see people going from the government to the contractors to the lobbying firms and back and forth. But a lot of the problem, too, that I saw was simply a problem of enforcement. And when I reported this corruption up the chain of command, people didn't want to deal with it. It was clear that what was going on was not legal, but they ended up protecting the individuals, and they came after me. And that was a problem of career bureaucrats and also the Office of Inspector General, who's supposed to support this. And we saw Trump already fired a bunch of inspectors general, and he fired the USAID Inspector General recently, which I think is very important because these are supposed to be the watchdogs, and too often they've been failing in that task.
So in the cost of this corruption, I would presume, and why we need to kind of sort of complete this circle, is that if you have corruption, on the level that we're talking about, what ends up happening is the government selects contractors that either might not be the best man for the job or the lowest bidder of some kind, although I know we have rules around that. So it's either more expensive or it's a worse job for the taxpayer if corruption is what's guiding the decision-making with the contractors, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. And unfortunately, we've seen a great deal of this. And this, of course, is a problem we see at many federal agencies. It's starting to become an issue at Department of Defense, for example, where they have even more contracting dollars. So
that's what I was going to bring up next. This isn't unique to USAID, right? This type of corruption that you've described for us. I mean, I would have to assume the entirety of not just federal government, but state government as well, is rife with this kind of corruption.
Yeah, it really is a big problem almost anywhere you go, where you see government bureaucrats with fistfuls of cash dispensing it out to people. And, it's no surprise if you look at what we call the aid industrial complex, which was basically the USAID and all its industry contractors, lobbyists, et cetera. You also have the military industrial complex. A similar thing, you have companies hiring all sorts of people straight out of the government. And in many cases, the only reason is that those people have a Rolodex full of people in the government who can help steer things. We're seeing it now with these tech companies moving into the DC area, building massive complexes. They clearly are trying to influence the contracting process. And, hopefully now that we have new leadership at places like the FBI, that they may pursue more of the antitrust legislation. But I mean, this is another reason why we should be very careful of government spending, because the more of spending there is, the more likely as you are to have some of this waste, fraud, and abuse.
Okay, I want to go back to USAID. So we've talked directly about the crazy type of things they were funding. Then we talked about the corruption. But I want to go into sort of their mission externally and internally. So let's start with externally. Like I know at some level, USAID is going into perhaps third world countries or wherever they may be, war zones, and helping out in terms of humanitarian need. But is that the extent of what USAID does across the world?
Yeah, well, USAID does a lot of different things, and some of it is the sort of life-saving humanitarian assistance, and a lot of that spending has actually been allowed to continue now in the Trump administration. Although I should point out, even that type of assistance is not always as benign as you might think, because what often happens is the money's going into a political area, and political actors may use this for their own gain. Syria, Gaza, for example. You're not being purely humanitarian. Somebody's going to probably benefit and someone's going to lose when you put that money in. Then we have development assistance, which is aimed at longer term development in many countries. And some of that can be beneficial too. I mean, it's useful to us if countries, for example, have developed to the point that they're better able to prevent illegal migration out of their country to this country. And so there is some value to it, but a lot of it, especially under the Biden administration, ends up being put towards things that are really, pretty far from what most people would think could be development. Climate change, transgender arts, that kind of stuff is, I think most Americans, even a lot of Democrats would say a lot of that going on there is frivolous. And you also have funding of media there, and a lot of times that's questionable too, because you're also getting into politics. And we've seen a lot of governments complaining about USAID funding of media that is they view as disruptive or hostile to them.
How responsive is USAID to changes in political direction versus like what we're debating right now in America is the constant, it's what we've come to call permanent Washington, which is a permanent bureaucratic class that is basically insulated from firing or failure and continues on in a direction regardless of who the president is. And right now, I think Elon Musk said this very well, like if you have that class going, no, we're not doing what the president, it was actually Stephen Miller that laid this out really well. We're not doing what the president's directives are. Then what you have is not a democracy because the president is elected as a democracy. They're a bureaucracy that's consistent. So how responsive in your experience is something like USAID to changes in the political landscape?
Yeah, so in the first term where I served in USAID, the bureaucracy was very resistant to presidential direction. That's one of the reasons I wrote this book, is because the Trump administration, first of all, was late getting people into the agency and then didn't have enough people. And some of the people there were not vigilant enough. And so what happens in that case is the bureaucrats end up making a lot of the decisions. And they're also very good at slow rolling things. So when you would say you want to do something, they all come up with a million different excuses and say, we have all these reviews we have to do. And so there was a great deal of pushback at USAID the first term, and a lot of things didn't happen because of that. And that's why I think you're seeing such a tough and different approach taken. And USAID was, to some extent, a poster child of this, which is why it was one of the first agencies targeted. But clearly, the new administration decided that business as usual, where you're trying to get the career bureaucrats to do everything, is not going to get us where we need to go, and we need to assert greater control, and we need to push out some of the worst of the bureaucrats.
Let's go back now. Okay, so the way I'm seeing this conversation unfold for you and me is we talked about corruption. We also talked about the role that USAID is playing externally in other countries, and you laid out, when you're funding media or you're picking winners and losers, you're kind of taking political sides often. What about internally, like in the United States of America? What about USAID funding? Like we saw stories, I don't think they were all true, about different media, whether or not it was, Politico or, I don't know. There was some jokes about different Hollywood stories and everything that were being funded. How much influence were they exerting internally in America?
Yes, well, they do give a lot of money to NGOs that are based in the United States. And traditionally, most of those are left-wing NGOs. And that's, again, a problem that I think new administration is really focused in on, is that even in the first Trump term, political appointees often didn't have a handle on this. And so you had all of these powerful NGOs getting money. Now, some of it's to do work, but other stuff is more sort of general research. And a lot of these NGOs have been resistant to what Trump administration wants to do. And for those who haven't been to Washington, go into Washington and see how many lavish offices these NGOs have, and they have experts all over the place pushing their views. I think they will send people on these various protests, and we suddenly see people mobilizing around an issue, and you're wondering why that happened. And so this whole constellation of NGOs has been very powerful. And of course, it also has a lot of influence on the mainstream media, because they look to these people for ideas.
And you were at USAID. You were President Trump's appointee, right? To USAID in the first administration. I was
one of the political appointees. I mean, I didn't get there till 2018 because the first administration was just not prepared. That's night and day difference. This time, where day one they had all these people showing up, there was nobody going to USAID for months at the beginning of 2017.
And your contention in your book, right, is that you found corruption, at least among a handful of people at USAID, and by exposing that corruption, then you got run out.
Yes, they targeted me and claimed I had published classified information, which was spurious and for a number of reasons. But the main point here is that instead of going after the corrupt people, they actually target the people who report the corruption. And this is how you get a highly corrupt organization, because when people see that, the next guy is not going to stand up and say, oh yeah, here's corruption. He's going to keep his mouth shut because he's going to get in trouble. And you see this problem of whistleblower retaliation at a lot of federal agencies. USAID's bad. I mean, Veterans Affairs is another example where they have this history of punishing whistleblowers. And so that's something that certainly the new Trump administration is addressing.
All right. So the book that you have out, it's entitled Masters of Corruption, How the Federal Bureaucracy Sabotaged the Trump Presidency. While it's looking back on the first term of President Trump, it's certainly apropos of things we're discussing and focused on today when it comes to USAID and your direct experience then. So check out the book. And Dr. Mark Moyar, we appreciate you jumping on with us today.
Hey, great to be with you, Will.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. I got some of your comments here loaded up, ready to go when we come back. Plus, I need to introduce you to the new member of the family next on The Will Cain Show. PJ Dami on YouTube says, I'm going to go out and buy lottery tickets. I said months ago Joe would be joining the unemployment line soon, and here we are. It is the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel and the Fox News Facebook page. Always on demand by subscribing at Apple or on Spotify. All right, fellas, it's official now. Hey, come here, Saint. We have a new member of the family. I don't know if you guys back in New York can see him.
Hey,
this is for anybody.
I'll control the camera. Hold on.
What's that?
There you go.
I didn't even know you had control of my camera.
I did.
There he is. Saint, come here. Look up there. What's that?
Who's that? Yeah. Welcome, buddy.
He returned home on Friday. Saint is about a year to a year and a half old. I'd give him 70 pounds right now. Black and tan Doberman. You can see him right here. He's got his ears done.
So well behaved.
Where you going, man?
Where you going, buddy?
He's a good boy. Watch this. Saint, come here.
Wow.
Sit.
No.
Hold on. I got to stand up. Come here. Sit.
There he goes.
Nice. Yeah.
Good boy.
He's been at discipline camp for a month. And he you zooming in, everybody can see I'm barefooted.
Sorry.
Doing the show 2 days.
Sorry.
So we got Saint on Christmas, right? So I think I told that story. I did not put him on social media. I didn't. He didn't have a coming out party like this, and here's why. Whew, it was rough the first couple of days with Saint.
Yeah.
You know, he was fixated. What are you looking at me for? He's trying to figure out what we're talking about. Don't tell. He's like, don't tell this part. He was fixated on my other Doberman, Violet. He wanted nothing but to hump her all day, every day. That's it. He couldn't focus on anything else. You could see in windows that you could see in windows that he's a good boy and that he's smart, but you couldn't get his attention. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. My man could not. He could not. If she moved, like if they were laying down and she just repositioned herself on her bed, he was up, like ready to go. So he went away for a month. He was fixed in that month, and he got discipline training. Great discipline training.
Seems great. It's a handsome pup.
He's great, man. He sits, stays. He's awesome on a leash now. He understands the word place. That means go to your place and lay down. He can't leave it until you give him a command to come off of it. And for anybody thinking about breaking into my house, good luck to you.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
This dude here ain't going to be messed with. Now we got two of them in the house. Yeah, so he's official. It was touch and go. Like, I don't know if I need to put him on social media because I don't want to have to reel it back if this doesn't work out with Violet. 'Cause I had to protect Violet.
Yeah, of course.
You know, like, she was miserable for the first 2 weeks he was with us. She was miserable. But now they're getting to be buddies. It's working out good.
Well behaved.
So, yeah, he's a good boy. He's big. Do you guys know the difference? So there's 4 colors of Dobermans, okay? There's black. I think they call it red, but they come off as brown.
Mm-hmm.
There is what they call blue, which is the recessive gene of a black one. And they kind of come off like a little dark grayish. And then fawn. And that's what Violet is. She's like pretty much gray, and she looks like a Weimaraner. She doesn't have her ears done like he does either.
Yeah.
Hey, quit working on your tail right here. But there's 2 different strains of Dobermans as well, European and American. And Violet's American. And here's my quick lowdown on that. American are thinner, sleeker in their head and their body. And in my opinion, they're more athletic. They are like, watching her run and do stuff is incredible. He is bigger, blockier head. Europeans are bigger. They can get up to 100 pounds. Big, blocky head, which you can see. And thick legs and paws. Like, he's a little heavy-footed compared to her and a little clumsy. He'll run into stuff. But we thought he was American when we first saw him. But I wanted American. But he's Europe. I'm pretty sure he's European.
Yeah, that's
maybe some mix of them.
That's the only color of Doberman I've really seen, I think, that I've ever known what he is.
Well, this is the stereotypical color.
Yeah, of course.
Right? This is the dominant gene. No recessive genes. This is the Magnum PI. You know, Zeus and Apollo.
Yeah.
Look. This is my third Doberman. My first that got me onto the breed, Leon, was like this, but he was American. Go ahead, 2 days.
How big will he get? What's the weight, did you say?
I don't know. That's the big question.
Yeah.
He's hungry. So I could tell, like if I start feeding him a lot, I think he's going to pack it on. I'm not sure, though. I think my suspicion is he's going to go to about 90.
Wow.
85, 90 is my
It's a
suspicion.
big pup.
Yeah. Big boy. He's a good boy. So that's Saint.
Heck
He's the
yeah.
new member
Welcome.
of the family. Welcome, Saint. and he's off. All right. Here's some of your comments. Richard Henry says, every day we're unburdened by what has been. That's a reference to Joy Reid.
No, that's a reference to Kamala Harris. But
no, that's got to be in reference to Joy Reid.
Yeah, exactly.
Using Kamala Harris's line.
Yeah, but I have that line if you want to reference what they're talking about.
Go for it.
It's the pursuit of doing things better than we have done and seeing what is possible unburdened by what has been.
We see what can be unburdened by what has been.
That's my favorite.
You forget how much the tone really makes it.
So we're unburdened now by Joy Reid. Kevin K on YouTube says he misspelled it. He spelled it Whoppy instead of Whoopi. Whoopi. Whoopi needs to be next. Something's going to happen at The View. So the reports are that they got, I got the hiccups.
Oh, God.
They got the messages from on high that, do you think there's a big Will Cain show TV audience that started to check us out and they're like, his dog's on the show, he's barefooted, and he has the hiccups on air. Like, what? This is a totally different show.
It's real. It's real. You know? We don't hide behind anything.
100%. Yeah, the executive said for them to tune it down, the anti-Trumpism. So people can't change, though. I mean, there's two different types of people in this business. There are those that are believing what they do and those that are doing it for their career. And I think Trump has exposed both types, right? And I'm always surprised by the people I've found out in retrospect are the ones that will change their tune as needed by the bosses. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, if they're told to be less anti-Trump, they'll suddenly be less anti-Trump. But I think the ladies of The View, like Joy Behar, Whoopi Goldberg, Sunny Hostin, they can't pivot. They've say what you will, but I think they believe what they're saying.
Yeah, totally.
They're legitimately insane. Speaking of doing this for a living, let me take a minute and say, for those of you who haven't heard the news, Dan Bongino, conservative radio host, podcaster, very successful, like number one, right? Or at least top three.
Yeah.
Has given it up. He's given it up by accepting the position as deputy director of the FBI. What are you laughing at? The hiccups?
Yeah, sorry. Got me. Want me to scare you?
I don't think that's going to work.
Damn.
I don't know what I need.
Our viewership's down.
But is it?
No.
Might be.
No, it's
No, I was trying to scare you.
Look what they put on the comment board. Holy.
Oh. Think about how much Dan Bongino gave up to go get this government job. Like,
A lot of money.
dude was making a lot of money. A lot of money. I don't know how much, but making a lot of money. For that matter, so was Hegseth. You got some guys giving up really high-paying jobs to go serve their country. Bryce Cooley says, read out. Couldn't get more accurate than this. LOL. Wasn't that the name of her show? Read out?
Yeah.
The readout.
Apropos.
out.
And Audie Joe says, Will Cain has the best intro. Thank you, Audie.
Oh.
I don't know what that is. The music they're talking about?
Probably.
I don't know. Are you going to start recording some music for us 2 days?
I am. I started working on with a buddy, doing some guitar riffs. Do you want singing or do you want just music? Do you want like a hook?
I want singing.
Yeah. Okay.
I want singing.
Okay.
I want comedy songs.
Oh, you want comedy songs? Okay.
Do a Joy Reid one.
Yeah.
Read out.
I don't know, Saints walking around.
Read out.
Saints walking around all the electronics.
Oh boy. if we go to off air and dark,
If we go dark, it's just Saints unplug something. Congratulations to Dan Bongino and to the FBI and to the United States of America. I think it's really good. Dan's a true believer, I'll tell you that. And you want to shake up the FBI just like we're shaking up every other federal institution. This is a big step in that direction. Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, that's going to be shaking up the FBI. What's up, James?
What would you say to the folks who might say, hey, this is a really big jump for Bongino to go from host to this?
We're not talking about just a talk show host. We're talking about a guy who was in the Secret Service. And for those also talking about, I mean, yeah, he definitely has what he believes, and he's laid it out for years. But he protected President Obama's life, right? So he understood what it is to do your job regardless of how you personally feel or your partisan viewpoints. So the other thing is about these guys that take a leap, whether or not that's Hegseth or Bongino, I'm just out on the idea that a career of bureaucracy is what qualifies you to continue or change the bureaucracy. It's just not a way to change it. And that Harvard-Harris poll I was referencing earlier, the people are ready for some change. They're ready for getting rid of government waste. They're ready to get rid of the unnecessary jobs. How about Elon Musk sending the email to all the federal government employees? I need a 5-point explanation of what you did last week, or consider it your lack of reply a resignation.
Damn.
I mean, whether or not that's smart and whether or not everybody's going to abide by it, because I saw some reports like the DOD and the FBI actually wouldn't do that. With that conversation with Dr. Moyar, I like the focus on corruption and fraud, and it's important, but it's only the starting point. Like, the idea that our government should be run efficiently shouldn't be controversial. And we would all, I think, left, right, everyone acknowledge, look at the bloat in government. Look at the size of it. It's the one institution that never corrects itself. Markets up, markets down, the government always grows. You know, and does that mean, do we really think that everybody doing their work is doing it efficiently or well? Have you ever been to a DMV? You know, have you dealt with the Postal Service? And no insult to some individuals that work in those institutions, but they know the institution they're involved in. Somebody said the government should be more like SpaceX than Boeing, right? So
Yep.
even if it doesn't go full SpaceX, a pivot back away from Boeing and the way it's been done, I think is something that the public is ready for. It will cause disruption in the same way Bongino and Patel will cause disruption to the FBI. It will cause disruption, but it's creative disruption, creative destruction, because the creation is then on the private sector to unleash all of us and the money that we're having to pay ultimately to the government to get inefficient things done. All right, that's going to do it for me. Two-a-days, Young Establishment James and Tinfoil Pat and Saint today here on The Will Cain Show. Real quick, what's up, two-a-days?
I just want to say, just before we go out, someone said Doberman's barefoot and hiccups, my kind of host.
Hell yeah.
And the truth is, the hiccups are because of Zen. So now you're getting the full picture. All right, that's going to do it for us today here on The Will Cain Show. I'll see you again tomorrow, 12 o'clock Eastern Time, FoxNews.com, Fox News YouTube, Fox News Facebook. I'll see you next time.